If you want her to come back, stop chasing, detach with dignity, grow in silence, and focus on your purpose. Show strength through actions, not words. Become the man she can't forget, confident, rare, and unshaken. When she feels your absence and your power, her return becomes inevitable. When you keep chasing someone, you instantly communicate that you are dependent on their presence to feel complete. That energy, no matter how well hidden, is always sensed. The more you chase, the more you push her away because it reveals a lack of self-control and self-respect. Attraction doesn't grow where desperation lives. Instead, the real power lies in learning to step back and create a space that naturally pulls her toward you. When you stop chasing, you allow her to feel your absence. You let her experience life without your constant presence, and that silence becomes louder than any words you could ever say. It is in that quiet distance where curiosity begins to grow, where she wonders why you are not reaching out, why you are not trying to convince her. That wonder slowly turns into attraction because what is not easily available becomes valuable. Attraction is never about begging for attention. It is about showing that your life is already full, already meaningful, with or without her. A man who invests in his growth, his health, his career, and his peace of mind radiates a natural magnetism that no words can fake. When she sees you glowing in your own lane, living with purpose and confidence, she begins to feel drawn back to that energy. Chasing keeps you in a position of weakness, while attracting places you in control. When you're chasing, you're trying to prove your worth to her. But when you focus on attracting, you're silently communicating that your worth is already established, whether she recognizes it or not. This shift is what makes her notice you again. Women are deeply moved by a man who doesn't need them, but chooses them. The energy of attraction comes from self-respect. It's when you stop explaining yourself, stop justifying, and stop begging for her attention. You don't ignore her with bitterness. You simply carry yourself with dignity and discipline. You don't close your life to her, but you don't put her at the center of it either. That balance shows strength. Every woman is drawn to a man who is focused, grounded, and in control of himself. When you redirect your energy from chasing to building yourself, you unconsciously send out a signal that she can't resist. She feels the shift. She feels the confidence. It makes her question why she ever doubted you in the first place. Remember, desperation pushes away, confidence pulls closer. By letting go of the chase, you no longer place her on a pedestal. You bring the focus back to your own growth, and in that process, you become more attractive without even trying. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean cutting someone off with anger, bitterness, or revenge. It means stepping back from the constant emotional pull that drains your power. When you detach, you reclaim control over yourself. You no longer react to every word, every silence, or every action she takes. You begin to stand steady, unshaken, and that steadiness itself becomes magnetic. Emotional detachment is about refusing to let your feelings cloud your dignity. Most people, when hurt or rejected, lose control. They beg, they argue, they chase, or they act out of frustration. But the truth is, all of that only lowers their value in her eyes. When you show that you can respect her choices, respect her space, and still remain calm and in control, you stand apart from the rest. You show maturity that silently demands respect in return. To detach emotionally is to accept the reality of the moment without resistance. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about not allowing those emotions to dictate your behavior. You may feel pain, but you don't let that pain speak for you. You may feel longing, but you don't let that longing make you desperate. You hold yourself with grace and discipline, choosing your silence over unnecessary reactions. That kind of restraint is powerful because it shows strength that very few people are capable of. Respect remains at the core of this process. When you detach respectfully, you don't insult, you don't blame, and you don't tear down. Instead, you create space with dignity. You are not cold or cruel, but you are also not available in the same way you used to be. This balance of warmth and distance is what captures her attention. She begins to see that you are strong enough to let go, but wise enough not to burn bridges. Every woman notices when a man detaches with respect. She feels the absence, but she also feels the maturity. That absence creates curiosity, and that curiosity begins to work in your favor. The moment she realizes that you are not emotionally tangled up in her every move, she starts to question why. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he chasing? Why isn't he breaking? Those questions turn into intrigue, and intrigue often turns into attraction. Detaching emotionally is also an act of self-love. It protects your mind, your peace, and your future. You stop overthinking, stop waiting for her responses, stop measuring your worth through her behavior. Instead, you redirect your energy to things that build you up. And as you do, she can't help but notice that your world hasn't collapsed without her. That realization makes her reevaluate her own feelings. When you stop clinging and start standing tall, you give her the space to return, not because you begged her to, but because your strength reminded her of what she walked away from. The moment you start upgrading yourself, everything changes. Instead of sitting in pain, waiting for someone to come back, you redirect that energy into growth. You take the hurt, the confusion, and the disappointment, and you use it as fuel to transform into a stronger version of yourself. When you stop making her the center of your world and instead make yourself the priority, your energy shifts completely. That shift is what attracts her back, because nothing is more magnetic than a man who refuses to stay stuck. Upgrading yourself is not just about external changes, though those matter. Yes, you should take care of your body, dress better, and invest in your health. When you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you radiate confidence. But the real upgrade happens within. It is the mindset you build, the discipline you adopt, and the peace you create inside yourself. A man who is focused on his goals, his growth, and his vision automatically commands attention without needing to demand it. When you upgrade yourself, you start breaking free from old patterns that kept you small. Instead of scrolling endlessly, waiting for her text, you spend that time reading, learning, and improving your skills. Instead of drowning in emotions, you channel them into building a future you're proud of. That kind of shift doesn't just change how she sees you, it changes how you see yourself. And the truth is, once you see your own value, others have no choice but to recognize it too. A man who is constantly evolving becomes impossible to ignore. Women are drawn to men who are moving forward, not stuck in place. When she sees that you didn't collapse without her, but instead became sharper, stronger, and more focused, it makes her question her decision. She begins to wonder what she might be missing out on, and that curiosity pulls her closer again. The beauty of upgrading yourself is that it makes you attractive not only to her, but to the world. Opportunities begin to open up, new people enter your life, and you start to carry yourself differently. Your presence becomes more powerful because you are no longer waiting. You are creating. You no longer look needy because your life is already full. And ironically, it's when your life is full that she feels the pull to come back. Growth is irresistible. People can walk away from you, but they can't ignore the glow that comes when you are focused on becoming the best version of yourself. That glow doesn't come from pretending, it comes from genuine self-work. And the more you upgrade, the less you even feel the need to chase. because at that point, she is the one who starts chasing you. Holding your boundaries is one of the strongest signals of self-respect you can ever send. When someone leaves, it is easy to feel the urge to lower your standards, to compromise your values just to win them back. But the truth is, the moment you do that, you teach her that you can be bent, that your word doesn't carry weight, that your respect for yourself is negotiable. A man who wants someone back should never lose himself in the process. Boundaries are what make her see you as valuable again, because value is always tied to standards. Boundaries are not about being harsh or cold. They are about knowing what you will and will not allow in your life. If she left, she cannot just walk back in without proving that she respects what you stand for. If she hurt you, she cannot just pretend it never happened and continue as if nothing has changed. When you hold your boundaries, you are saying, I value myself enough not to accept less than I deserve. And that silent declaration is more powerful than any words you could ever say. Women are naturally drawn to men who stand firm. A man who bends at every emotional push, who gives in at every tear or excuse, quickly loses his value. But the man who calmly stands his ground without anger, without drama, but with quiet certainty, he is the man she remembers, respects, and ultimately comes back to. Boundaries communicate strength. They show her that your love is a choice, not a weakness. The beauty of boundaries is that they create clarity. Without them, confusion takes over. She may leave, then come back, then leave again, because you have not shown her the standard by which you live. But when you make it clear through your actions, not just your words, that access to your life is a privilege, not a right, she feels the weight of her decisions. That weight forces her to evaluate her actions differently. Boundaries also protect you from becoming a prisoner of your emotions. Instead of allowing her to walk in and out of your life freely, you control the terms of engagement. If she wants to return, she must respect the limits you set. If she tries to cross them, you hold steady. This does not push her away. It makes her realize that you are a man of principles, and that kind of man is rare. A man without boundaries is forgettable. A man with boundaries is unforgettable. She may resist them at first, but deep down she respects them, because boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are filters to keep self-respect in. When she sees that you can love her deeply while still standing firm in who you are, that is when she begins to feel drawn back. Not because you begged her to return, but because your strength reminded her that losing you is not an option. Being unavailable is one of the most powerful moves you can make when someone has taken you for granted. Availability is like a resource. The more easily it's given, the less it's valued. When you were always there, always answering, always showing up at her convenience, she felt no urgency, no fear of losing you. But the moment you pull back, the moment you stop giving her unlimited access, something shifts. She starts to feel your absence, and that absence carries a weight stronger than any words you could have spoken. To be unavailable doesn't mean playing games or being rude. It's not about ignoring her out of spite. It's about shifting the balance of power back in your direction. Instead of sitting around waiting for her call or reply, you're busy building your own life. You are no longer at her service, no longer predictable, no longer the man who can be reached anytime, anywhere. That unpredictability makes her curious again. She starts to wonder what you're doing, who you're with, and why she no longer has the same access she once had. When you are unavailable, you remind her that your attention is a privilege, not a guarantee. And the truth is, people value what they have to earn. When she realizes she must put in effort to reach you, to be around you, to feel your presence again, she naturally starts valuing it more. What was once taken for granted suddenly becomes precious. Being unavailable also gives you back your energy. Instead of spending it on endless texts, arguments, or reassurance, you spend it on yourself. You pour it into your goals, your health, your success, and your peace of mind. And the stronger and more fulfilled you become, the more magnetic your presence grows. She begins to notice that you are no longer lingering in her shadow. You are living fully in your own light. Women are deeply attracted to men who cannot be owned or controlled. A man who is too available sends the message that he has nothing better going on. But a man who has a life, a purpose, and a direction, he becomes irresistible. Because being unavailable shows that you are not waiting, you are not desperate, you are not depending on her presence to define your worth. Instead, you are moving forward. And if she wants to be part of that journey, she must align herself with it. The beauty of unavailability is that it makes her feel the loss. She remembers the attention she used to get, the time you used to give, the energy you used to pour into her, and suddenly it's gone. That gap creates desire. That silence makes her restless, and that restlessness is what drives her back toward you, because the man she once assumed would always be there is no longer within reach, and that realization changes everything. There is a kind of strength that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to argue, and doesn't need to prove itself. It's the strength of silence. When you choose silence instead of over-explaining, instead of defending yourself, instead of chasing for answers, you communicate more than words ever could. Silence has a weight, a presence, and a power that forces others to notice. It leaves space for her to reflect, to wonder, and to feel the consequences of her decisions. Most men waste their power in words. They beg, they plead, they argue endlessly, thinking that explanations will change her mind. But the truth is, words often dilute your value, while silence intensifies it. Silence tells her that you are strong enough not to react emotionally. Silence tells her that you can handle distance without falling apart. Silence tells her that you don't need to fight for her attention because you know your worth whether she recognizes it or not. Silent strength is not weakness, it's control. It's choosing not to engage in unnecessary drama, not to lower yourself into endless back and forth arguments. It's about letting your actions, your energy, and your presence speak for themselves. When she sees you carry yourself with calm composure, when she realizes that her absence doesn't destroy you, she begins to feel the pull of that quiet confidence. What makes silent strength so effective is that it creates space for her to feel. When you keep filling the silence with words, you don't give her the opportunity to miss you. But when you pull back, when you stop talking, when you stop chasing, she's left alone with her own thoughts. And it is in that space where she begins to reflect on what she lost. Silence turns into a mirror, forcing her to confront the reality of her choices. Silent strength also demands respect. Anyone can yell, beg, or complain. That takes no effort. But to stay calm, to stay composed, to walk away with dignity, that takes discipline. And discipline is attractive. When she sees you handle the situation with maturity, when she notices that you're not trying to prove anything, she can't help but respect you more. Even if she doesn't admit it immediately, silence leaves an impression that lingers in her mind. The beauty of silence is that it leaves room for mystery. When you don't reveal everything, when you don't react to everything, when you don't make yourself predictable, she starts to wonder. That curiosity becomes powerful because curiosity pulls stronger than persuasion ever could. Your silence plants questions in her mind. Why isn't he reaching out? Why isn't he fighting for me? Why is he so calm? And those questions turn into attraction. In the end, the man who speaks less but moves with strength always stands taller. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you know when to withdraw your energy, and that kind of restraint is unforgettable. Confidence is the one quality that never goes unnoticed. It doesn't matter how you look, what you own, or where you come from. If you carry yourself with confidence, you instantly stand out. Confidence is not arrogance, and it's not about pretending to be something you're not. Real confidence is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in the belief that you are enough as you are, and that you are capable of handling whatever life puts in your path. When a woman looks at a man, she feels his energy before she notices his words. If he is insecure, needy, or desperate, it shows in the way he speaks, in the way he moves, and in the way he reacts. But when he is confident, there's no need for over-explaining or proving himself. His presence alone communicates strength. Confidence creates safety, and safety creates attraction. A woman feels drawn to the man who walks with certainty because his energy says, I know who I am and I'm not afraid of losing you. Confidence is irresistible because it makes you rare. Most men collapse under pressure, lose themselves when faced with rejection, or let fear dictate their actions. But a man who holds his ground, even when things don't go his way, sets himself apart. He shows her that he is not defined by her choices. He is defined by his own standards, his own discipline, and his own vision for his life. That unshakable presence makes her look twice, because strength like that cannot be ignored. The beauty of confidence is that it creates freedom. You no longer seek validation from her or from anyone else. You don't need constant reassurance because you already know your worth. And the moment you stop needing approval, you become even more attractive. Women naturally gravitate toward men who are self-assured because confidence communicates stability. It tells her you can handle challenges, you can lead, and you can protect, not by force, but by certainty. Confidence also reshapes how you treat yourself. When you believe in your value, you carry yourself differently. You take care of your appearance, you stand taller, you make eye contact, and you walk with purpose. These small changes may seem simple, but together they create an aura that is impossible to fake. People around you begin to feel it, and she especially begins to notice the difference. What makes confidence so magnetic is that it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, and it doesn't fold under pressure. A confident man is willing to walk away if his value isn't recognized. And that very willingness makes her want to stay. Because deep down, women are drawn to men who don't need them but choose them. When you stand in confidence, you remind her of what she once saw in you, and even more, you show her what she risks losing. That realization alone is often enough to bring her back, not because you asked, but because your strength left her no choice. Letting her feel the loss is not about punishing her. It's about allowing reality to speak louder than your words ever could. When you keep giving her your attention, your time, and your energy, even after she's walked away, she doesn't experience what life is like without you. She doesn't get to feel the emptiness that your absence creates. But when you pull back, when you stop being available in the same way, she begins to notice what she once overlooked. Loss is a teacher, and sometimes the only way she will truly value you is when she feels the weight of not having you around. Most men make the mistake of trying to soften that loss. They keep checking in, they keep showing up, they keep giving pieces of themselves away even when they're not being valued. But all that does is make her comfortable in your absence. She knows you'll always be there waiting, so she feels no urgency to return. Letting her feel the loss means you stop cushioning the consequences. You let her experience the silence, the distance, and the lack of your presence. That space is what wakes her up. Loss creates clarity. When someone is constantly around, their presence becomes ordinary. You stop noticing their effort. You stop appreciating their qualities, and you start assuming they will always be there. But when that presence is suddenly gone, when that voice is no longer calling, when those small gestures are no longer being made, the mind shifts. She starts remembering the way you made her feel. She replays the times you were there. And slowly she realizes just how much she had without even noticing. Letting her feel the loss also allows you to reclaim your power. Instead of begging her to see your worth, you let her come to that realization on her own. You no longer try to prove yourself or remind her of what she's missing. You trust that absence itself will do the work for you. And it does, because the human mind always values what it can no longer easily reach. The key is not to fake it. Don't pretend you've moved on while secretly waiting at her feet. Truly pull your energy back and focus on your own growth. Live your life fully, invest in yourself, and show that your world doesn't collapse without her. That authenticity is what makes the loss real for her. Because the moment she sees that you are not sitting still, but rising higher, she begins to feel that sting of regret. Loss is powerful because it makes people reflect. When she feels your absence, she will begin to compare what she has now with what she had with you. And if you've been using that time to grow, to become stronger, more focused, and more confident, the contrast will be undeniable. That's when the pull back towards you begins. Not because you forced it, but because her heart realizes what her mind ignored. At the end of it all, the truth is simple. She doesn't come back because you chased, begged, or proved yourself. She comes back because you became the man she cannot ignore. By stopping the chase, detaching with dignity, upgrading yourself, holding your boundaries, becoming unavailable, standing in silent strength, radiating confidence, and letting her feel the loss, you shift the entire dynamic. You remind her without ever saying a word that you are valuable, that you are rare, and that you will never settle for being taken for granted. That is the kind of man who draws her back, not through pressure, but through presence. And when you master this presence, her return is not just possible, it's inevitable.